So this is an example of the various stages that you'll go through on this path to a really good and happy life. The hope is that these bite-sized chunks of the path would give you something tangible to work on at each step, and hence be able to better digest all of the stuff that you need to do over this entire journey. And the suggested timelines could also help you have a sense of urgency and be able to see when you need to get someone else's help, for example, a mentor or a teacher, rather than do it all alone. So, stage -1 is the worldly concern stage. Here, the view is that ultimately external things will make you happy and would lead you to live a really good life. But what you should be working on is trying to use your discernment to see that ultimately these external things cannot live up to their expectations, and the happiness that they give us is fleeting. To get out of this stage and move on to the next stage, the goal is to develop enough dispassion towards external things that you also want to work on the internal stuff, that is your mental states. The next stage, stage 0, is an introduction to working on your mind for this happiness. It mostly consists of using meditation based techniques or methods rather than working with a foundational view. Here, you are dealing with stuff that gives you temporary relaxation and perspective shifts, or gives you awakening experiences or non dual experiences and stuff. This can include stuff like relaxation meditation apps, um, contemporary Dhamma, for example, mindfulness stuff, and even pragmatic Dharma movements, or even some other older traditions where the path isn't as clear. This can also include working with therapy or philosophy. In this stage, the view is only partially correct, and you mostly depend on formal techniques for your meditation sits or even in daily life. You follow these techniques with the belief that certain magical experience would happen on their own and that'll change your life. A symptom of this is giving too much importance to things like how exclusive your attention is, how much pity you have, how deep your jhanas are, or how vibratory every phenomena is, how non dual every phenomena is. Your goal in this stage should be to try out the technique as best as you can, but then see that they might not be giving you the results that you were looking out for initially, or the results are pretty inconsistent, and hence move on to the more foundational stuff. And by results, I mean results in terms of decrease in dukkha or stress and living a happier and a far more wholesome life. Stage 1 is the introduction to the basic foundations, that is the dharma. Here, the view consists of theoretically understanding dependent origination, that is the game of your mental states, how they become better or how they become poorer. In the formal sits, you do the techniques that are based on these foundational views. And in daily life, you probably don't do anything special for now, but you just try and emulate a good daily life using a preliminary sit. What you're working with during this stage is just finding a good resource. It can be this YouTube channel, or it can be another YouTube channel, or just another source in general that teaches you these foundational things, that teaches you this proper dharma. Basically, just trying it out, even if you try it out still as an external technique. The goal of this stage is to just see whether this method of practice works better for you, subjectively feels more effortless and more instinctive rather than what you have been doing until now. And this gives you the confidence, at least in the technique or the method. Stage 2 is mundane dharma or dhamma. Here, because of your previous confidence, you finally contact a mentor or a teacher to debug or try to fix your technique or what you have been doing until now, and more importantly, to fix your foundational view of how this entire path works. Here, you are working on a better experiential understanding of this game of mental states, what causes stress and what leads to just being in a better mental state. And you're trying to decrease clinging to specific meditation techniques or teachers. So, until now, you were still liking this new way as an external technique compared to previous techniques, but now you're understanding how all of this stuff works at this basic foundational level. So you instinctively start coming up with stuff that works for you and leave stuff that doesn't work for you. So the view in this stage is this experiential understanding of how to improve your mental state and what leads to a decrease in mental states. So it's not a matter of technique now. You understand what's happening underneath. Your daily life is far more simpler, and you sort of try to emulate the five precepts, but it's not perfect because your daily life changes are still based on convenience. And in formal sits, you start reaching these higher stages of mental states far more frequently, even if it's not perfectly consistent. But you work with your mentor to get to these stages really quickly. The goal of this stage should be having confidence in the foundations, this mental state game, instead of clinging to specific methods or teachers. The third stage is supramundane leaning Dhamma. Here, you basically start prioritizing your life towards this foundational stuff, but you also start understanding that maintaining this game of mental states, it's really a chore. It's something that you need to do, and you start seeing the danger in not having a safety net that gets you out of this game altogether. So this should cause you to have an almost instinctive need to get to what I call stream entry. So the view in this stage is seeing the danger even in this game of mental states, and seeing the need for stream entry. The daily life is far more prioritized towards living a sort of life that is conducive to this practice, which means at least keeping the five precepts. And your meditation practice, as a result, starts becoming far more consistent, and you start the vipassana stages, especially in touch with a mentor or a teacher, and get to the first path moment. So the goal of this stage is to get to stream entry path moment for the very first time. The fourth stage is the supramundane Dhamma. This is where you almost single mindedly work towards breaking the fetters of stream entry and getting to stream entry fruit. Here, it's important to not get lost in the more contemporary sources of Dharma and rather stick to the early suttas and their definitions. Also, you shouldn't really try and get too distracted by all of the philosophies and so on that your mind comes up with during these stages, even if you have a lot of awakening experiences, because most of them won't be exactly true until you get to stream entry. And basically, just get the job done as quickly as possible. Here, the view is based around instinctively being able to see the issue or the dukkha related to those three fetters, and also being able to play around and see the chains of dependent origination during your vipassana practice. During daily life, you uphold the five precepts, and also you make sure that you deal with the three fetters or any clear unwholesomeness when they do arise. Your meditation practice is all about repeating the entire cycle of Anapanasati, all the 16 steps, again and again. So going through Shamatha and Vipassana again and again until you get to stream entry. After that, the next stages are working towards the next fetters. So that's where you also start including other stuff, especially in your daily life. For example, sense restraint is a very important part. And you obviously start living your life through the lenses of the Dharma. Now, from stage 1 until you get to stream entry, you should also supplement your view with a lot more early Buddhist teachings, maybe suttas, or maybe just teachers who teach using those references, rather than depending on the more contemporary teachings. It's not because everything that contemporary teachers teach is wrong. It's just that you wouldn't really have the perfect sense to be able to tell what part is right for you and which ones don't really lead to full freedom from stress. Feel free to start referring to these contemporary sources and even stuff from other traditions after you have gone through stream entry. Now, how quickly you go through all of these stages depends on your prioritization and your discernment. For example, for some stages, it's about discerning the dangers of your current stage or the previous stage, and then having the determination and the prioritization to work on the next stage's stuff. It can also include the discernment and the prioritization to, yeah, actually see that you aren't practicing well enough and that you feel confused, and then be willing to take some help if needed. In my opinion, you should be prioritizing this as if your head is on fire, because this is the biggest determiner of your quality of life, how good a life you would live. So you really should be proactive in getting this stuff done, and yeah, taking help if needed. So stage -1, getting out of that could probably take people decades or yeah, maybe even lifetimes to a certain extent. And that's basically just called growing up or maturing up technically. Stage 0, I think you should play around with these introductory techniques for a few months, maybe max a year. But after that, if you don't really get consistent results where you see your behavior change permanently, then you should move on. But if you have high discernment, you'll probably skip over and just go to the foundational stuff straight away, more or less. Stage 1, where you get introduced to the Dharma and you practice techniques based on that Dharma, should take you just a week to get the confidence that, all right, this works pretty much better than how I used to approach it before. But then getting in touch with someone so that you can see whether you're practicing it correctly. Stage 2, you should be in touch with a mentor or a teacher more or less, very consistently, very frequently, if you can, every day. And you should be reaching a new threshold, anapanasati step or shamatha step, one step at least per week. Ideally, it can be faster than that, where almost every time you do a formal meditation, you reach a new stage, a new step that you hadn't reached before. So, even conservatively, it should take you 2 to 3 months to get a hold of this stage, but ideally, just a few weeks. Step 3 is actually about learning about the need for stream entry. So, it mostly depends on your discernment, how quickly you can see the danger in not going through stream entry and getting that safety net of, yeah, just not having to play this mental state game all the time. But once you have discerned that, then it'll probably just take you a day, if you're already reaching these high shamatha steps, or maybe a week max to get through the vipassana steps to get to the path attainment. And for the fourth stage, getting to stream entry fruit, or actually getting to stream entry, it can take you around 3 months or so if you meditate at the pace of one anapanasati sit per day. So, yeah, that'll take you around 3 months or so. You can technically do it really quickly if you want to. You can do it in a single day, or maybe in 3 or 4 days. But it is really possible that you actually get distracted from this foundational dharma and you start practicing in other ways that don't actually lead to breaking the fruit, just leads to various non-dual sort of experiences that sort of emulate the dhamma but don't actually break the fetters. And in that case, you can live 30, 40, whatever years of your life that are left and not actually get to stream entry, even if you think you have. Now, depending on your practice history, it's possible that you're further along the path in terms of these stages. So, ideally, you should check with a mentor just to be sure, and you should cover the basis of the previous stages just to be sure that you have fixed your views in terms of what those previous stages teach. A common trap is the good meditator trap, where you are precisely that, good at techniques and good at getting pleasant states, even what some might call jhanas, but you're still at stage 0. In the next videos, we'll go over most of these stages in far more detail.